Life Transitions radio show with your girl, Coach Latoya, here on WDRB Media, the voice of the community. Thank you all for listening in today. Happy Saturday. The last couple of weeks, we have been talking about coaching. We've talked about making those most important 4 shifts that we talked about last time. Had the pleasure of having Destiny on last time and sharing with us the preparation tips on making those shifts to nailing your interview and making those shifts to having those dynamic business conversations. So we talked about a lot, but today we are in for a very special treat. We are talking to all of our entrepreneurs out there, all of our folks that transition from that W-2 to that entrepreneurship life, the folks that said deuces to the corporate world. Where are you? Because we are talking to you today. So let me take a second and introduce to you guys my special guest, a dear, dear friend of mine, Zenitra. So Zenitra, will you just give us a quick introduction before we jump into this topic with our entrepreneurs?
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Zenitra Perry. I am a serial entrepreneur. Spent almost 20 years in the corporate sector and was able to transition out of corporate into entrepreneurship. I have a few different companies. I am an executive coach. I'm a motivational speaker and a consultant. I also have a trucking company as well as
She got all the business.
Health and wellness company. So there's a lot of transitions that are happening, and I'm excited to talk about them today.
Yes. So let's back it up. So she done gave you all of these business. She is a serial entrepreneur. But we're going to back it up a little bit and talk to Zenitra. First, let's talk about this corporate job you had. So coming out of college, represent HU, by the way.
Yes, Howard University.
Yes. So tell me about the attraction to a corporate job. Like, what was that like for you?
Okay, so it's interesting when I think back to even childhood, whether it's watching TV or even having family members who had the jobs where you had to dress up, it was always something that I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And then going to Howard University, I was an accounting major, so I was in the School of Business, and there were tons of corporate partnershes that we had, and so we were pretty much groomed, if you will, for the corporate life. I knew that I wanted to work for what at the time was one of the big 4 accounting firms. I was able to secure an internship with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I started my career in accounting. And that provided a lot of training, helped me build up my work ethic, get me some of that, the professional foundation. So I was always excited about corporate America. Even if I think back to, this is a funny story that I love telling. My favorite movie as a kid was Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Oh, Lord.
Right?
Okay.
And so if you remember, the big sister, she went and got a chance to get a job.
Yes.
She got a corporate job in marketing.
Yes.
Right? So, that was a vision that I had in my head. And then also, two can play that game. When Shantae had on that yellow suit and she walked into that office, I was like, that is going to be me. So those were the images I had.
Okay, I love it. I love it. So, I love the fact that you talked about being at Howard, right? And they groomed you for that. Because I was at FAMU at the School of Business. And that was one thing that they always taught us, right? Is that you're going to leave here and you're going to be successful. So they set up a lot of things there right at school. But the attraction to the job, I love how you reference those movies, because we all had those, and love me some, what was that, Christina Applegate? Yeah, Don't Tell Mom. Okay, I know.
Yeah, same thing.
So, started in accounting, right? Okay, so that was going well. What was the attraction to climbing the corporate ladder, right? So I know when we get into these jobs, a lot of times success is like, I have to keep climbing. I have to keep doing things. What was that like for you?
Listen, from an intern, I said, I don't see a lot of people that look like me. I want to be someone that people can look up to. Someone, whenever they enter into the organization, they say, this is a place for me because I see people who look like me.
Right.
That was the goal.
Okay.
And then I started working. And I was even though I was an accountant, I was in audit, and I had every worst case scenario you can imagine. All the things they tell you in school that like they rarely happen, I had them back to back to back. And it was just tough being 21, 22 years old with all of this responsibility.
Yeah.
And to be quite honest, I didn't want to take the CPA exam. So I was like, I don't think I'm going to stay in audit, but I did want to climb the ladder, and that never escaped me.
Okay.
I knew that it wasn't going to be in public audit.
Yeah.
But I always saw myself in a leadership position where that I could kind of not only be representation, but really shape and mold the minds of the future.
Okay. So you hit on this a little bit, but typically folks in corporate, they're climbing this ladder, right? They're looking for the next level of success. But some way, somehow, at some point in time, you peak, right? You get to a point where you're like, I've done the things I wanted to do. I've achieved that job that I always dreamed I would have. I had that corner office. I had that, whatever that is, right? So you get to this point of peak. Tell us a little bit about that feeling.
I know exactly what you're talking about because that's exactly what happened to me. But I want to talk about kind of the duality of rising in corporate America, but also feeling like it's not a place for you.
Okay.
So I will be transparent. When I got pregnant with my oldest son, I was praying to get laid off because I didn't want to go back to that space because I just didn't think it was a space that wanted me in totality.
Okay.
And I was praying to get laid off because I was like, God, if you just give me 4 months.
Yeah.
Right? Like I got this coaching business that I started on the side. I think I could take it and turn it into something if you give me 4 months. And God said, go back to work. I went on back to work, and what ended up being 10 years later, I was able to achieve that dream. But in the process, I don't know that it was about 6 years where I truly just felt like I'm doing this because I have a family to take care of. Now I'm married, I have a kid.
Right.
The responsibility is bigger than just myself, and I didn't feel comfortable taking that leap with those responsibilities on my plate. And so in the meantime, even though I had kind of this vision of entrepreneurship from the time, I was out on maternity leave, I continued to climb the corporate ladder.
Okay.
I always jokingly say every time I wanted to quit, I got a promotion. Which is
they knew what they were doing.
You know what I'm saying?
They were doing. They were like,
okay, well, I guess I'll stay a little bit longer. And it ended up getting to the point where I was able to create my dream job.
Wow.
So myself, along with one of my mentors, we created a new department within the organization that specialized in kind of the things that we wanted to focus on, which was sales strategy and education. And I was, when I came into when we created the department, I was the director, and then I became vice president. And I remember when I was a director, literally within like 3 months, my then vice president was like, okay, if you could design this department, what would it look like?
Wow.
And I remember sitting in her office with the whiteboard, and I drew it out. I was like, these are the three teams that we're going to have. This is who will run those teams. This is how I would restructure the people, put them in different places. And she was like, it can happen. She told me, you're going to be the next person to be promoted to vice president in this department. And I was like, girl, I just got here. Mind you, the conflict, right? It's like, I never even thought that we could create a space that we wanted to be. I was just happy to be there and no longer feeling the urge to quit.
Right.
But she saw me in a way that I couldn't yet see myself. And so I'm in this role as director, and ultimately she ended up leaving. And that was a rough period, but eventually I was able to, I was promoted to vice president, and that was the peak. Everything that I laid out on that whiteboard that day came to fruition.
Wow.
The team looked exactly as I wanted it to. And I got to spend a few years like leading the team that I created in my mind, 4 years prior. And so to me, that was the peak. I did the thing that I set out to do.
Dream job, for sure. Dream job. So lots of people aspire to be there, right? Lots of people are like, oh, if I could have a job doing exactly what I want, making exactly what I want to make, right? Or in the area, whatever that is. So I work with a lot of people. It's like, I just want to get to this point, right? But when you have this other passion that is just, boiling. I mean, it's something that is so satisfying and fulfilling for you. It gives you a different type of feeling of success, right? When you have this. So when did that entrepreneur passion start for you?
So it started again that 10 years prior. I was kind of doing it on the side. And I actually took a break from my coaching practice because I was able to do the things in corporate that I was doing on the side.
Okay.
I was able to coach and develop and train. And so, that was awesome. I often say that we think that the vision that we have is the end result when really it's just the thing that God gives us to get us started on the journey. So you want that dream job, you want that, but there's so many things that you'll gather along the way, right? And so once I got that dream job, the skill sets that I gathered along the way were really the things that prepared me to be able to confidently take that leap.
Wow.
I'm happy that I was able to, learn those things in the process.
Okay. So I always tell people this. So when you're working for a company and getting that W-2, if you have any, thoughts or some type of inspiration to become an entrepreneur and go out on your own, make sure you are gaining as many skills as possible while you're there, right? And that sounds like that's what you were doing. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to tell them your whole plan. You don't have to tell them what you eventually want to do. But before you decide to make that transition, it is really a benefit to you to utilize as many skills, as many resources as you can with that particular company that's going to then help you better be successful as an entrepreneur. Because as an entrepreneur, we know that there's all kinds of hurdles and challenges and things that you have to, that you'll encounter that you don't encounter when you have a W-2. So we're going to take a quick break, all right? And when we come back, we're going to jump into all of the businesses that my friend Zenitra has and how she made that big leap of faith, okay, and landed on her feet from her W-2 job. So this is Life Transitions with your coach LaToya, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Life Transitions Radio Show with your girl, Coach LaToya. We are here on WDRB Media, the voice of the community, and I have my girl Zenitra here. We have talked about her background in her corporate job and talking about entrepreneurship here. So Zenitra, tell us, when you made that leap of faith, you said it was 10 years later when you made that leap of faith. Tell us how it felt first before we go into the leap. What were some of your feelings?
Okay, so before I could even begin to feel from an entrepreneurship perspective, I had to feel all of the 20 years of corporate that I hadn't felt, right? Yes. And there were some traumas there, to be quite honest. Yes. I'll never forget the first week. I cried every day, but I was happy. Yeah. But I couldn't understand why tears were flowing. And it's for all of the times where I was facing challenges in life that I couldn't feel because I had to keep working. Yep. I had to keep going. Mm-hmm. And so I had to take a moment to just feel everything that had happened, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of those things. So I think it's important whenever we talk about transitions to not just hop to the next, because you really have to take a moment to close out, kind of the former before you jump into the next. So there was a feeling of relief, but there was also a feeling of, the times when I was scared and I had to keep moving, the times when I was sad and I had to keep moving, all of those feelings came out, once I made that leap, and it had nothing to do with the entrepreneurship side of things. Yeah, absolutely. And that's real, right? Because like you said, sometimes we're so ready to jump to the next thing and we don't know what that's going to be like. So people always say, oh, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Well, really, you don't know what color the grass is. Right? And you're so comfortable in what you're already doing, but then the feeling of leaving all that behind, right? The feeling of like, okay, I am in something new now. So you're right. You have to kind of address that first before jumping in. So what was the first business that you decided to go into after making this big leap? So complete change of directions. The first business I started was a trucking company. Okay. Has nothing to do with corporate training. None of that. Okay. All right. Put all that aside. We're going to do something totally different. Okay. And this was a partnership, and my partner was like, this is something that we can do. And now that I had the time and the freedom, it's like, all right, let's go for it. Okay. So there was a ton of fear there.
Mm.
There was so much fear because I knew nothing about this industry.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that I had to learn pretty quickly was I had a ton of experience that I was bringing with me that was absolutely transferable. Mm-hmm. And to be able to move with the certainty that I moved in my career, just apply it over to this new side of things. Mm-hmm. Because even though I was starting in a new industry, I wasn't starting from scratch. So with fear, I kind of had to counter that with experience and really lean into the experience.
And that's good, because when you're going into a transition, how satisfying and just freeing is it to bring along with you all of the skills that you've learned in a different industry, right? Yeah. So that's why I was saying, making sure that you are taking advantage of those resources while you're in a job, because look, you might not have known anything about trucking, right? Mm-hmm. However, you have background in accounting and have some corporate skills that you could bring with you that made that transition a lot easier, right? It made it easier for you to kind of jump in, right?
Yeah, so I did client management for the bulk of my career. I was in sales and marketing, so I always worked in client management. I knew how to pick up the phone and call folks, ask for things. I knew how to deliver. I knew how to sign contracts. All of those things were transferable over to the trucking business. So I just had to start leaning into that more so that it would help alleviate some of that fear.
Okay. All right. So for my people that have this fear of jumping into an entrepreneur or just jumping into any type of being a business owner, okay, what were one or two things that you could tell them, or you could give some advice for those that haven't done it yet, right? And it's their first business, their first thing, they're W-2 right now, they're thinking about it. Mm-hmm. They're in that fear stage, right? That stage of, I don't want to leave, I may feel a little stuck. What's one thing you would say they can be doing right now before they make that jump that'll help them in that transition?
So this is going to seem simple, but your mindset is one of the most important things, and you have to be ready to make the decision to do it, right? So we have choices in life, and the choices we make are based off of information, but we don't have any experience. When it's time to make a decision, that's when you're like, okay, this is something I'm committing to, right? So I need for you to commit to the thing that you want to do so that whenever it gets hard, you're not ready to quit. Mm-hmm. You have to commit, first of all. Mm-hmm. And then second, I would say find somebody at some level that's doing what you want to do who will be willing to kind of walk hand in hand with you through the beginning of the process. I know that oftentimes we're looking for someone who is like super experienced, who are 10, 20 years into what we're doing, but we're not in the same space that they're currently in. And it's honestly kind of hard to look back 20 years and remember all the things that were necessary. Right. Partner with someone who's 1 or 2 years in, who can tell you, oh, last year this is what I had to do. Because rules change, policies change, things change. So you want someone who's close enough to the beginning stages so that they can help you, but also someone who's a little bit further ahead because, you know, they've had some trial and error, they've learned some things. So I would say, first things first, get your mindset together, make sure you make the decision so that you're committed, and then very next, find someone, again, who may not be super tenured, but someone who has some experience, some recent experience in starting whatever it is, the business you want to start. Yeah.
I love that mindset piece, right? Because a lot of people are going to brush over that. A lot of people are going to jump over that because they're telling themselves, oh, I got it, I can do this, right? But how important is it to be sure that you have the right mindset? Because after you make that leap, sometimes you're going to be dependent on you, right? Yeah. And if you don't have the right mindset, if you're not in a good space mentally and emotionally, right? You're going to bring on your own challenges. Yes. So I love that you said mindset first before you even talked about getting those mentors and that sort of thing. All right, so let's go back. So we talked about this trucking business. You went ahead and did a leap of faith and did something totally different from all of the skill sets and that sort of thing. What would you say about year one of the trucking business? From challenges, just that big transition, the first year, what would you say?
I learned how to get it done. Okay. And I know in my corporate experience, you know, there's a lot of times for editing and revisioning and redoing things and trying to get it perfect. And that honestly can cause a lot of anxiety. I can't tell you what kind of anxiety I have around writing emails, or that was formerly around writing emails, because corporate's like, you have to say it this way.
Yeah.
In the trucking business, get it done.
Yes.
Hello, do you have a truck that can carry this amount? Do you have the insurance? Send it to us. Let's go. Yes. Right? So it helped me to move beyond some of my perfectionism.
Okay.
Where I would feel like everything needed to be every T crossed, every I dotted. Not to say that I'm careless now, but there's a lot more. I'm moving at a faster pace.
Okay.
Where I don't have to think as much about every single decision. I don't need to think 10 steps down, but what is the next step? And I conquer that next step, and then I move forward to the next one. So it's like one step at a time, but you have to take the step and you have to take it quickly. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the earliest things I learned in the trucking industry. Also, I talk to my partner about this all the time. There's a difference between employees and business owners.
Uh-oh.
Okay? So, and you're going to have to transition from being an employee to being a business owner, right? Okay, so as an employee, when you make mistakes, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't affect your pockets. Mm-hmm. But as a business owner, when employees, and I'm talking about employees of other companies, when they make mistakes, it can affect your pockets. Yeah. Okay? So I had a situation where we had a place where we park our truck over the weekend. We park there every weekend. We know it's 2 days. It's a certain amount. Well, it was a holiday weekend, so we needed to add a third day. And we did. We requested a third day. But when the lady rung up the ticket, she only put in 2 days. You know what happened on that third day? Our truck was towed.
Oh, my gosh. Oh.
And so as business owners, we're livid.
Yeah.
But she's an employee, and she's like, initially she was saying, you told me only 2 days. And we're like, no, we didn't. Yeah. Run the cameras back. Yeah. We did tell her 3 days.
Right.
Oops. Her paycheck's not affected. I'm out of $7,000 on a Tuesday morning. Wow. Right? And so you have to treat other people's employees as your employee in the sense of you got to be willing to double check their work. Yeah. Because, again, it's not going to impact their check, but it can greatly impact yours. Come on. I had a situation where a driver, his former employer didn't file his medical DOT card. And so when he was stopped by the DOT, they're like, oh, you can't drive, baby. You don't have a medical DOT card on file. Well, he's like, I've been driving for 2 years. Like, what do you mean? My last employer, it was their responsibility. Right. It was their employee's job to send this in. I'm sorry, baby, we can't let you drive this truck until you get it in. Was able to send it in immediately, but it takes them 48 hours to process it. Oh, wow. Again, the errors of employees, other companies' employees, can cost you money. And so we just had to be more diligent about staying on top of people, even if they didn't work for our company, to make sure that we weren't hurt in the long run. Yeah. So that was definitely a big, big lesson. And I also got more comfortable with, I don't want to say necessarily mistakes happening, but stuff happens, right? Mm-hmm. If, we had a tire blowout on the road, thankfully our driver was okay, but lost control of the truck, had to regain control of the truck, and then it caused some damage to the truck. Wow. That's part of business. It is. There's nothing we could do about that now, but now we're off the road, for the next 6 weeks. Right. Things like that happen, and not being so like, oh my gosh. It's like, okay, what is the solution, and how do we move forward? How do we move forward quickly? Mm-hmm. And that has helped me in other businesses. Because, of course, otherwise, you're trying to prevent every single mistake. You get caught in perfectionism. You get caught up in the planning, and then you end up not taking action. So I'm definitely more, okay with understanding that even when you do everything right, things still happen, and you'll be okay. You'll figure out a solution, and you can still move forward. Yeah, okay. I like that. So anybody transitioning over into the trucking world, she has given you a lot of things to think about before you make that leap. So definitely appreciate that. So let's transition a little bit. Drop another business owner, because I know you have another business. Okay. What's something else you jumped into? Okay, so I love all things leadership development. And so I am a speaker, I am an executive coach, and consultant. And this was an opportunity for me to lean into those 20 years of corporate experience,
Yes.
and put it into play, to lean into that entrepreneurship that I dabbled in for 10 years, being a coach on the side, working with executive clients. And so this is my passion.
Okay.
This is where,
I can tell.
This is where my heart is.
I can tell.
But, it was a different business to start. So whereas the trucking business is very transactional, like there are loads out there, you got to get them. Once you get a load, you can hit the road.
Right.
Whereas on the coaching side, I needed to build up my clientele, build relationships, build rapport. Because I guess another transition that happened, I moved from New York to North Carolina. So lots of transitions happening, but yeah, so that one took a little bit longer to get up and running.
So let's talk a little bit about businesses that when you're starting out, right? You just jumped over into starting this business. Let's talk about businesses that require clientele, right? And building that. What are some things that either some challenges you ran into or things you learned in order to build this clientele for this particular business?
So my goal was to have simply a speaking company.
Okay.
But again, that takes time to build up rapport, to find the right time, right? Because I want to go into these corporations and speak at their team meetings or come in through the HR department. And it takes time to build relationships and then timing, like when is their next team meeting?
Right.
But what I was able to lean into was something, again, that was a little bit more transactional. I worked in sales and marketing, so I have a digital marketing background. There were people who wanted to pay me to run their social media pages.
Wow.
So before I could get to the thing that I wanted to do, I had to do something that the market needed.
Yes.
And so my first clients in my consulting company is more on the social media marketing or just digital marketing side. And so sometimes you have to be willing to go deeper into your bag of tricks to figure out what is tied to what I want to do, so it's still related to the business that I'm starting, but it may be able to help me get started faster while I'm working on building up my clientele.
Yeah. Okay. I like that because I work with lots of folks that want to make the jump, and they have a great product or service and that sort of thing, but the biggest part is, how do I get it out there? How do I get more people to know what I'm doing? How do I sell myself and that sort of thing? So that's why they stay in that corporate job, right? Because you get that check every 2 weeks.
Yes.
The benefits is good. You might have a 401k or a pension if you old school. But so that is very. A lot of people are content with that,
right? And
the fear of jumping out because you don't have clientele. The fear of jumping out because you don't have marketing or that background or whatever. To do that. So it's good for people to know, right, that is something you're going to have to think about and definitely maybe have to dig into that bag a little bit, right, and do some other things to build there. So, all right, so tell us what first year of consulting, what was that like? What was...
First year of consulting, I laughed and said that I was a full-time student, philanthropist, part-time coach, speaker. I was taking any class that I could, especially if it was free. So working through the local chamber of commerce, they offered a series on getting government contracts.
Okay.
I participated in a leadership development program. I did one in Charlotte. I did one in Union County. I was really trying to meet people, build my network, get my name out there, learn in the process of learning, be able to share what I already know, so that people would be able to trust me with the services that I wanted to provide to them. So I was in my first year, I had very few clients, but I had enough clients, that kept me in it.
Yeah, okay.
It was just enough to keep, it was just enough.
Kept the food on the table, right? No. You can feed the kids, feed the family.
We're not going to eat out. We're going to eat. Okay. Everybody have a meal. We got 3 of them a day.
Got enough, right?
That's it.
Okay.
There's no second. So that was tough, but I think it was critical to build those relationships so that I could then lean into them from a revenue perspective later on. So you're going to have to do some work for free.
Yeah.
You're going to have to work for free. You're going to have to do some work for free.
Free.
And you know what? Actually, I don't call it free. I look at it as kind of it's a prepaid or like a payment plan.
Oh, okay.
I'll do a little bit of work. It's layaway. I get paid later for the work that I'm doing today.
Okay, you're gonna put it on layaway.
Put your work on layaway. You'll eventually get paid for it.
Okay, I like that thought process, honestly, because a lot of people jump out there and they want to put a price on everything, and that's their business, right? That's their business. But if you're looking for clients, right, and if you're trying to get the message out there, you're trying to get people to understand what you offer, what results you can bring, sometimes you might have to give a little sample.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
You might have to put it on a layaway plan. You know how you might put your Christmas stuff on layaway.
Yeah, that's what we start.
Yeah. So Thanksgiving, she's going to put it on, and then she's going to get it out by Christmas.
So
So you're going to do that workshop, you're going to do those services for Thanksgiving, and then you might get paid by Christmas, right?
Right, exactly.
So
this Christmas or the next.
right. Now, you know layaway don't last that long.
Layaway doesn't, but entrepreneurship does, okay? Let's be very clear.
You're right.
These are analogies, not examples.
You are right. Some of those entrepreneur dollars might not come in
It might not.
right away.
Right.
Yes. And that's real. That is real, because I know a lot of people understand that that's one of the fears of entrepreneurship, right? Is that you're not going to make the money. And then you might be broke or whatever, then you might have to go back. Or you may have saved up. I have one example where we have some clients that saved up some money to make the jump, right? So thank God they had that. However, they ended up spending all that money because they didn't have clients. Right. They didn't take advantage of some of those resources. And another thing they didn't do is they didn't do free 99. They tried to charge right out of the gate, right? So they ended up spending a lot of their money, right, to get the business off the ground. And there are lots of different ways to do this. There's not one particular formula. And all we're trying to do is just help people that are thinking about making that transition from W-2 to entrepreneurship. Just give you some insights and ideas of things that have been successful from our serial entrepreneur here, and things that could, potentially help you, reach the level of success that you're trying to get to as soon as possible. So we are going to take a quick break and play a little bit of music. So we'll be right back and wrap this up. Welcome back to Life Transitions Radio Talk Show with your girl, Coach Latoya, here on WDRB Media, the voice of the community. So we have a special guest here, Ms. Zenitra. And so, Zenitra, give us some closing remarks. What are some things that you would love to share with our listeners today? We've heard a lot from you from our entrepreneurship, but for folks that are out there, give us some closing tips.
Yeah, so when I think about the transition from corporate into entrepreneurship, I had to learn balance in a different way.
Okay.
When you have a boss, whatever they ask you to do, you pretty much have to do it.
Yep.
Right? And so you have to learn as an entrepreneur what your capacity is and not to take on too much.
Right.
I know that related to that, whenever I wanted to deliver to my clients, initially I would over-deliver, and to the detriment of my business. Because when you work for a corporation, you give your all to whatever project. Yes. However, whenever you have clients, you have to learn to a certain degree, limit what you provide to what they paid for. Right. Because you have services that are available. And that's not to say you don't deliver, top quality. But you have to be mindful in your pricing strategy. What can you actually offer them and the amount of time that it's going to take?
Yes.
Because I know initially I tried, I had a client, I was meeting with them, it was an initial meeting, and I had already created a strategy for them.
Wow.
Initial meeting. They hadn't signed anything.
Right.
They didn't say yes to me.
Yeah.
And I was over here researching. I was like, and I had a mentor that was like, okay, let's break this down to an hourly rate, and what can you accomplish in an hour? Yeah. What can you give to them at that price? Right. And stop. Yeah. And if they're looking for more, then you can offer more. But there is a balance. We talked about doing the freebies. And you're going to do some of that. But whenever you're working with your clients, there has to be a balance between this is what you paid for, and then that's going to be an upcharge. Yeah. Everything's not an upcharge, but some certain things goes beyond the scope of what they paid for.
Yeah. And that's a good point you hit on there, because we are so used to going like above and beyond for that W-2 employee, right? Because you got that annual evaluation.
Review. Yep.
You got that
It's
review
coming
coming
up.
up, and you like, I did this, and this. So coming into your own business, though, you're thinking that's what I need to deliver,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So if you're gonna do that, then you're saying charge for it, right?
That's right. You got to charge for it.
Okay.
It's you don't want to give a $150 client $1,500 worth of service.
Got it.
There's nothing wrong with giving a $150 client $200 worth of service.
Okay.
Because you do want to go above and beyond.
Right.
You know, making sure that you're meeting their expectations and over delivering on them. But to jump from $150 to $1,500, that's going to impact how many meals you and your kids can have. Okay, we talked about this.
Yes.
We want 3 meals. We want seconds. We want snacks. And we want you to be able to have those things. So make sure that you're, you make sure that you're setting your pricing model right, so that you're not doing a disservice to your business. And that's one of the things that I think becomes a fallout point for certain people, because they weren't charging for a lot of the extra work that they were doing.
Okay, so tell us some things you have coming up, some ways our listeners can get in touch and follow you and all that stuff.
Absolutely. So I am, from my coaching practice, leaning into the health and wellness space, I am hosting a women's retreat in Tulum, Mexico. Please visit www.riotretreats.com. So we'd love to have you guys join us. We're going to talk about, honoring all that you are, celebrating all that you are, while empowering you to be more of who you're becoming. So definitely check out that website. We'd love to have you join us on the trip. Also, you can follow me, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Life Unlearned, where I have interviews similar to this, where we talk about the expectations that people had for life and the things that they had to unlearn in order to create the life they truly wanted.
Come on.
Because that's a process, okay? We talk about Life Unlearned, and I also have a podcast called Tip on Top of the Tip. These are candid conversations between myself and my co-host, International Inez. And then also just follow me on Instagram. You can find me at My Life Unlearned.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us today, Miss Zenitra. You have definitely enlightened us, shared all kinds of insights with our listeners. So if you are an entrepreneur or aspiring to be an entrepreneur, looking to make that leap, I hope this was beneficial for you to make that transition into whatever passion or business that you may have. So again, this is Coach Latoya with Life Transitions Radio Talk Show. This broadcast is brought to you by 7-Step Transition. So you can find us at 7steptransition.com. That's the number 7steptransition.com. Or on all social media platforms, 7-Step Transition. So a big announcement I wanted to share with you as well before we get out of here is that 7-Step Transition will be launching a transition coach app. So it will be dropping this spring. We're shooting for May 1st, okay? So yes, look out for that. May 1st, Transition Coach app will be dropping. So stay tuned. I'll be reminding you. Don't worry. I will be reminding you of that. So definitely excited about that. Thank you again so much. Thank you to our listeners. And catch us here, WDRB Media, the voice of the community, every Saturday, 11 a.m.